Hello and welcome to Quadratics 3.1, multiplying factors together. Okay, today's video hopefully is a review. Hopefully it's not a lesson that you're saying to yourself, wow, I'm just saying this for the first time ever, because this is something you should have learned in Algebra 1. So if it is brand new, yeah, don't worry, I'm going to teach it to you as if you didn't learn in the first place anyway. And if it is a review, then hopefully just brushes up on stuff that you already knew. Or maybe you might see a way that I teach it where it's a little bit different from how you learned it before, and if you like it, use it. If you don't like it, just use the other way that your other teacher taught, and that's perfectly fine. Okay, so first up is distributive property, and that basically says you're going to grab whatever's on the outside and multiply it to whatever's on the inside. So in this particular case, 7x is on the outside, and 4x and negative 5 are on the inside. Okay, so I'm gonna draw little lines to show that 7x is going to multiply to 4x, and then 7x is going to multiply to negative 5. So basically 7x is going to multiply twice because it has two things on the inside that it's going to combine with. Okay, so I'm going to actually write out what 7x is going to multiply to. So first up, it's going to multiply to 4x, and then second, it's going to multiply to negative 5. Okay, so on this kind of a lesson where it's a little bit of a review, hopefully, yeah, I'm going to use it to teach techniques that allow students to do this kind of computation in your head a little bit easier. Yeah, because I know I tell you guys, right, take away the calculator. So I'm going to show you guys little things that will hopefully make doing math in your head a little bit easier. Okay, and the thing you got to realize about math is the answers don't have to be figured out everything at once. You can get the answer in pieces, and because you can get the answer in pieces, you can allow your brain to focus on one part at a time. Because your brain focuses on one part at a time, then it's a little bit easier. You're not going to make more mistakes because your brain is just thinking of one part of the answer, like one small part of the final answer. Okay, so for this kind of a problem, I break up the answer into three pieces. The first piece is called the sign, like a plus or a minus sign. Okay, the second piece of the answer is going to be the number, and then the last piece of the answer is going to be the letter with the exponent. Okay, so let's do both of these problems and do the first part of the answer, which is the sign. Okay, so in the top problem we have a positive 7x times a positive 4x. So it's basically a positive times a positive. Okay, and if you guys know your stuff from back when you guys multiplied positive numbers together, you know that your answer is going to be a positive answer. So I'll put a plus sign to remind myself that I already did part 1, which is the sign of the answer. Okay, then to keep things consistent, I'm just going to do the sign of the second problem, where I have a positive times a negative. Okay, so hopefully you remember from previous, I guess, knowledge that when you multiply with negatives, you just basically count how many you have. And if there's an even amount of negative signs, your final answer is positive. If there's an odd amount of negative signs, your final answer is negative, because if there's an odd amount, then you don't have somebody to cancel out with that uneven amount. So like in this case, there only is one negative sign, so therefore does he have any other negative to cancel out with to make a positive? No. And that's why odd amounts of negative signs remain negative, because they cannot cancel out with each other, because there's not enough to go around, basically. Yeah. Okay, so there's part 1, the sign. Why did my ink suddenly change to purple? Let's change that. I want to change it back to blue. Okay, all right, so second part of the answer, number. Okay, so in the top problem, it's going to be 7 times 4, which is 28. Okay, and the bottom, here's the cool thing. Oh, actually, I have to rewrite the negative sign. So here's the cool thing about, we already know that the sign of we already know that the sign of the answer is negative. Here's the cool part. Okay, when I do the number part of this final answer, I don't care that I have a negative 5. Okay, I already know the negative makes my final answer negative, so I don't see negative 5 when I do the number part of the answer. I only see 7 and 5. I don't see 7 and negative 5. I see 7 and 5. And 7 and 5 makes 35. So you see how not having to worry about negative 5 can be almost like an advantage? right? Because a lot of kids, when you guys start doing math in your head, you start stressing out when you see a -5 as opposed to a +5, okay? And because you already know your answer is going to be negative, you don't care that the number that you're about to multiply is a -5 because you already know your final answer is negative. All you worry about is 7 and 5, which makes 35, okay? Okay, and then the last part of the answer, number with, I'm sorry, not number, letter with power, letter with exponent, okay? And a quick review on exponents is when I have an exponent, let's say like x to the third, yeah, or x to the fourth, or x to the fifth, okay, that number basically tells me how many x's are being multiplied. So x to the third means it's going to be x times x times x. Okay, x to the fourth means x times x times x times x, right? So 4x's multiplied together, 3x's multiplied together, and x to the fifth is going to be 5x's multiplied together. Yeah, that's what the exponent does. It basically just tells you how many of that letter is being multiplied. Okay, so if I look at the last part of this positive 28 answer, I got an x in the first parentheses multiplied to an x in the second parentheses. So I basically have two x's multiplying to each other. So I know my letter is going to be x because that's the only letter I'm multiplying. And I know 2 is going to be my power because I have two x's multiplied together. So that makes it a power of 2. Just like on the side here, when I have 3 x's multiplied together, that's a power of 3. When I have 4 x's multiplied together, that's a power of 4. When I have 5 x's multiplied together, that's a power of 5. So all I do is count how many x's are being multiplied and put that number as the power of x, because that's what powers do. They tell you how many x's are being multiplied. Okay, so in this bottom problem, I know I'm multiplying an x because I see a letter in my problem, so I'll just put an x right away. And then I count how many x's are being multiplied. So how many x's are being multiplied in this bottom problem? And you're going to say just 1. So you can put a 1 there if you want. You don't have to write the 1 if you don't want to, because like anything else, if you don't write a power next to a letter, the assumption is power of 1. So whether I have that 1 written or not, it's the same thing. Okay, so when I write my final answer on this top line, here's what I'll do. Okay, here's what I can write. I can write 28 x squared minus 35x. And like I said, you can put the power of 1 there. You don't have to put the power of 1 there. It doesn't really matter. It's the same thing. Okay, but there's your final answer for this problem. All right. Okay, so you can rewind if you want, but I'm going to kind of almost say the exact same thing when I do problem 2. All right, so same thing. We got 9x on the outside, 5x plus 7 on the inside. We're going to multiply 9x to both of these things. Yeah, so I drew 2 lines, 2 rainbows. So that basically means there's going to be 2 sets of multiplication. It's going to be 9x times 5x, and it's going to be 9x times 7. Okay, and we're going to do sign, number, letter with power. Exactly in that order, just like the previous problem. Okay, so first one, top problem, positive times positive. Hopefully you say that's a positive answer. Okay, second problem, positive times positive. That's a positive answer again, right? No presence of any negatives, so therefore negatives do not make an appearance in any of my 2 problems, top and bottom. Okay, then top one, 9 times 5, 45, 9 times 7, 63. Okay, and then letter with power. Keep in mind now, letter with power just basically says, yeah, the power says that represents how many letters that match, right? It has to be the same letter. How many letters are being multiplied? So I know my letter is x, and how many x's are being multiplied to each other? Well, I got an x in the first parentheses times an x in the second parentheses. So that's 2 x's multiplied together, so I put a power of 2. Okay. In my second problem, there's an x that's being multiplied because I see a presence of a letter, which is the x, and I only see one x in the entire set of parentheses. In the first and the second one, I only count up once. I put a power of 1. Okay, so when I write my final answer, I get 45 x squared plus 63x. And there you go. Okay, so I went by a little bit faster in the second problem because I didn't have to really explain things in super great detail. I mean, the process was still there. Yeah, I just went through it a little bit faster. Okay, so if you want the more detailed explanation, rewind back to problem 1. If you just want to see what happened again because things happened kind of quick in problem 2, just rewind for the problem 2. Yeah, so just rewind to wherever you need to rewind basically. Yeah. All right, so next problem. Okay, so it says use FOIL or box method. You don't have to use either of those methods if you don't want to. Okay, so I kind of start off the problem with explaining FOIL, and then I branch off into the method that I just used during distributive property. So I kind of like create a little bit different path from what foiling is or what box method is. So if you like the way I'm going to show you to you guys how to do it, then fine, use it. If you don't like how I do it and you think it's really confusing, and your other teacher back in the other class that you had before taught you guys a better method, then use that. I'm not here to change you. Yeah, I'm just here to offer you different ways to do problems, and you can pick and choose which way you like better. Yeah, so if you like the way I show you guys, fine, use it. If you like FOIL method, you like box method, yeah, use those methods also. Okay, so let's go for it. So we're going to still do the same premise where the contents of one parentheses is going to multiply to everything in the other. So you can think of like the 2x minus 7 as being outside, where 2x is going to multiply to 3x and negative 5, and negative 7 is going to multiply to 3x and negative 5. Okay, so I'm going to draw a line just like I did previously. Okay, so 2x times 3x and 2x times negative 5. So it's going to multiply to everything in the other parentheses. It's not going to multiply to the negative 7 though, because that's where some kids sometimes they make a mistake. They multiply to the negative 7 also. Don't multiply within the same parentheses. Just multiply 2x to the other two contents, the other two things in the other parentheses. Okay, so we have 2x times 3x, and then we have 2x times negative 5. Okay, and then we're going to multiply the other number in the first parentheses to the two things in the other one. So negative 7 times 3x, negative 7 times negative 5. So I'll write that out as well. So negative 7 times 3x and negative 7 times negative 5. Okay, so we're still going to do the three parts to an answer. Yeah, and yeah, I know I wrote that in purple. I'm just going to keep everything in blue because I don't want to keep changing colors. Okay, so let's do the sign for everybody. So positive times positive. Hopefully you say positive answer. Positive times negative. Hopefully you say negative answer. Negative times positive. Negative answer. Negative times negative. I don't think we had this situation come up in the previous two problems. Negative times negative, right? They cancel each other out. That's an even amount of negative signs. So they cancel each other out, and that makes a positive overall final answer for that particular multiplication. Okay, so, right? And if you think about what I just did, we just did the sign for each of these four problems. So I kept the thought process consistent, right? You didn't have to jump and say, okay, we're doing numbers now. Okay, we're doing letters with powers now. Okay, all we did was we did the sign for everybody. So your rule just had to stick in your brain for four problems, right? Four problems straight, and your thought process remains consistent. Okay, now we're going to jump to the second part of the answer, numbers. Now you can just switch gears. So now you don't have to care about any negatives that you see. You don't care about negative 5. You don't care about negative 7. You don't care about negative 7 and negative 5. You don't care about those negative signs. All you care about is a number. So in the first problem, 2 and 3, that makes 6. In the second problem, 2 and 5. Notice how I didn't say 2 and negative 5. I didn't say negative 5 because I already know my answer is negative. So I'm going to say 2 and 5, and that makes 10. Okay, and now notice I'm not going to say negative 7 and 3. I'm going to say 7 and 3 because I don't care about the negative. My final answer is negative. I know that already. So I just look at 7 and 3. That's 21. Okay, and then the last one. I don't care about negative 7. I don't care about negative 5. I just care about 7 and 5. And that makes 35. Okay, so your brain is just concentrating on one thought. Multiply the numbers you see in front of you. And don't worry about the signs. Okay, so letter with power. Remember now, yeah? The power tells you how many of that letter we're multiplying to each other. So x times x, right? That's 2x's being multiplied, so that's x squared. Second problem, x in the first parentheses, nothing in the second. So that's just a single x. So x to the first power, or you can just write x, doesn't really matter. Okay, third problem, I just see a single x again, so x to the first power. And in my last problem, I don't see x's at all, so I don't put any x's. Right? I only put x's if I see an x, and I don't see an x, so I don't put an x. Okay? All right, so then you got to do what is called like terms. Yeah, like terms are where the two things that you're about to combine have the exact same letter and the exact same power. So these top three, they all have x's. So are all three of these top three things like terms? Can we combine them? No, because, yeah, this guy has an x, just like these other two guys. But this guy is x squared, x to the second power, whereas these guys are x to the first power. So the top guy does not match with the two bottom ones because they don't have the same power. They have the same letter, but not the same power. Okay, so the ones that actually do match are these guys. Those two right there, because they have the same letter, they both have x's, and they both have the same power, power of 1. Okay, so when I combine them together, we got -10 and -21. And when you combine -10 and -21 together, hopefully you realize you get -31 and an x. So you can write x or x to the first power, it doesn't really matter. Yeah, eventually you're just going to write it as an x. Yeah, but if you put x to the first power, I'm not going to mark you wrong because it's not technically wrong. Yeah, but normally we don't write the power of 1. Okay, so our final answer, yeah, for the top problem, you get 6x squared. Oops, how come that's not writing? Did I not go back to pencil? 6x squared, okay, minus 31x plus 35. Okay, so I'll write that in the answer right up top here. 6x squared minus 31x plus 35. And there we go, all done. Okay. All right, so last problem for the lesson. Okay, so same thing. We're gonna do distribution twice. So 4x distribute to him, and -6 distribute to him and him. Okay, so let's write out our plan. So 4x, yeah, times 2x. So everything in the other parentheses. So 4x times 9. Okay, and then we got -6 times 2x and -6 times 9. Yeah, so we got 4x times the two things in the other parentheses. We got -6 times the two things in the other parentheses. Okay, so we're going to do sign, number, letter with power for everybody. So sign for the first guy, positive. Sign for the second guy, positive. Sign for the third guy, negative. Sign for the fourth one, negative. Okay. Okay, now number 4 and 2, that's 8. 4 and 9, that's 36. 6 and 2. Like I said in the previous problem, notice how I didn't say -6 and 2. I don't care about the negative. I already know my answer is negative. So I'm just going to look at 6 and 2, so that makes 12. Okay, then last one, 6 times 9. Okay, 54. Yeah, I don't care that's a -6. I already know my answer is -54, right? So I just look at 6 times 9. Okay, all right, now let's look at our letter with power. So count up how many x's are being multiplied. So x times x, x squared. Single x right there, so x to the first. Single x there, x to the first. No x's at all, so let's not write any x's either. Okay, so let's do like terms. Remember, like terms are same letter with same exact power. So that's these guys, they're like terms. Same letter and same exact power. Okay, this top guy has x squared, so he doesn't match with anybody. Okay, so positive 36 x to the first power minus 12 x to the first power. So hopefully you're saying, yep, that's 24x. X to the first power, x, same thing, right? Okay, so when I write out my final answer, 8x squared plus 24x minus 54. Okay, and I'll write that on that line up there as well. So 8x squared plus 24x minus 54. Okay, so for your homework tonight, just finish up 5 and 6. Okay, so I hope that made sense. And like I said earlier, if you like the way I just showed you the problem just now, use it. Use the technique if you want. If you don't like it, you think it's way too difficult, way too confusing, and you like your technique from your other teacher, that's fine. I'm not going to have any hard feelings if you don't use this technique. Yeah, just pick the one that works for you. Yeah, and that's the main thing. Pick the technique that makes sense to you and use it. All right? Okay, so I'll see you in class. Bye-bye.